Inside Israel this morning, a fresh wave of attacks wounded at least 25 people. Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility, saying they fired missiles into southern Israel. And they were not acting alone. Iran and Hezbollah, they say, coordinated this strike alongside them. This is no longer a proxy conflict. This is a direct, multi-front war involving state actors. And then came the moment that changed the energy calculus of the entire planet. 3 missiles were launched from Iran heading toward Qatar. 2 were intercepted. The third hit an oil tanker leased by Qatar Energy inside Qatar's own territorial waters. An Iranian missile struck a Qatar Energy vessel. Think about what that means for global oil markets, for Gulf diplomacy, for the Strait of Hormuz, and for every economy on Earth. Bahrain's military has now reported that across the duration of this war, its air defenses have shot down 186 missiles and 419 drones fired by Iran. 186 missiles, 419 drones. The skies over the Gulf have become a battlefield. Meanwhile, inside Iran, at least 7 people have been killed and 26 wounded in an Israeli airstrike on the Jan neighborhood located south of Beirut. Lebanon is once again bleeding. Let that number sit with you. 7 confirmed dead, 26 wounded. And the strikes are not over. We are going to take you through every dimension of this crisis, from the front lines in Lebanon and Israel to the nuclear facility in Bushehr that has reportedly been bombed twice, to the corridors of NATO, where America's allies are slamming doors shut, to the Gulf capitals, where leaders are quietly panicking. We will leave nothing out. Let's start with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who made a major statement regarding Iran. He said that Iran fulfilled all of its obligations under the well-known nuclear agreement. However, U.S. President Donald Trump unilaterally decided to withdraw from the deal. Meanwhile, European countries were saying, yes, it's a bad thing that the United States withdrew, but you Iranians must still comply with everything. He added, I apologize if this sounds a bit difficult to understand. This is what Putin is actually saying here. Spain has shut down United States military bases on its soil and denied American military aircraft access to its airspace. Italy has closed its airspace to U.S. military aircraft. France has closed its airspace to U.S. military aircraft. Switzerland, neutral Switzerland, has closed its airspace to U.S. military aircraft. Poland has refused to provide the United States with Patriot missile batteries. And Germany, home to nearly 50,000 American troops and one of the central pillars of NATO, is now seriously considering shutting down U.S. military bases and sending those troops home. Spain, Italy, France, Switzerland, Poland, Germany. These are not rogue states. These are not adversaries. These are the founding partners of the post-World War II Western Alliance. These are the countries that marched alongside the United States for 8 decades. And tonight, they are saying, not this time. Not with us. Not under these conditions. And what was Donald Trump's response to all of this? He stood in front of cameras and told the world that the United States is more respected today than at any point in history. More respected as Spain shuts U.S. bases, as Germany considers evicting 50,000 American troops, as France and Italy close their skies to American aircraft. Separately, Trump has again raised, seriously, not rhetorically, the possibility of pulling the United States out of NATO altogether. He says he is seriously considering it. If that happens, the security architecture that has kept Europe stable since 1949 collapses. The implications for Eastern Europe, for Ukraine, for the Baltic states, for Taiwan, and for every U.S. ally on Earth are enormous. Here is the paradox at the heart of this moment. The United States launched this war, or at the very least, is prosecuting it alongside Israel. And in doing so has managed to isolate itself, not only from its adversaries, but from its friends. The world's most powerful military alliance is fracturing in real time. And it is fracturing not because of Russia, not because of China, but because of decisions made in Washington and Tel Aviv. No American president in the post-war era has achieved this particular distinction: the isolation not just of adversaries, but of allies. That is the geopolitical reality as of tonight. Now, let us walk through what happened in the last 16 hours, because the pace of escalation has been unlike anything we have seen in this conflict so far. Last night, Iran launched a major missile attack on Tel Aviv. Reports indicate widespread destruction across parts of the city. Israel's air defense systems were stretched. Some missiles got through. The images from Tel Aviv are devastating. What came next is where this war entered genuinely historic and alarming territory. Israeli and American air forces, flying together, carried out overnight strikes on hundreds of targets across Iran. Hundreds of targets. Not a surgical operation, a campaign. The cities hit include Tehran, Kerman, and Sirjan. In Tehran, a university has reportedly been destroyed. A hospital has reportedly been destroyed. Civilian infrastructure, academic infrastructure, medical infrastructure, gone. 2 power plants inside Iran were targeted and struck. In Isfahan, one of Iran's most historically and industrially significant cities, 2 steel mills were destroyed. This is not just a military confrontation. This is an economic war, an infrastructure war, an energy war, layered on top of an active shooting war. And now, the development that has alarmed every nuclear watchdog, every regional government, and every responsible observer on the planet. Despite explicit warnings from Russia, which has been very clear in its communications, Israel reportedly bombed the nuclear power plant at Bushehr. Not once, twice. Bushehr, where uranium is present. Bushehr, where a nuclear incident could contaminate water, air, and soil across the entire Gulf region. We must be absolutely clear about the weight of this. This is not a military barracks. This is not an air defense facility. This is a nuclear installation. Bombing it twice in a region already in full-scale conflict is a decision that carries consequences that no missile defense system, no ceasefire agreement, and no diplomatic cable can contain if something goes wrong. A separate attack has also targeted the Sarsang oil field in Duhok province, in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region. Security sources confirm it was caused by a drone strike. Earlier, an oil warehouse in Erbil, the Kurdish capital, was also attacked. The war is now bleeding into Iraqi territory. The Kurdish region, which has tried to remain neutral, is now physically inside this conflict. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 20% of the world's oil and a significant portion of global liquefied natural gas moves through it every single day. Tonight, that strait is in crisis, and the consequences are already being felt in fuel prices, energy markets, and government emergency rooms from London to Tokyo to Islamabad. The UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has now assembled 35 nations in a coordinated push to restore freedom of navigation in the strait. Starmer's words were direct. He says Britain's goal is to guarantee the safety of ships and seafarers and resume the movement of vital commodities. He added he is not prepared to ask the British people to go through another crisis and then simply return to business as usual. The UK government has released a 5-point plan addressing the impact of this war on British consumers, reducing energy bills, extending fuel duty cuts, investing in clean energy, and pushing for de-escalation. 35 nations are working together to keep one strait open. That is the scale of the disruption we are dealing with. And then there is Dubai. Dubai, one of the most connected transit hubs on the planet, has announced that Iranian nationals are not permitted to enter or transit through the UAE. This is significant. The UAE has historically maintained open channels with Iran, even during periods of tension. This border closure reflects the depth of the rupture between Gulf Arab states and Tehran, a rupture that was already wide and is now a canyon. Here is what the Gulf Arab leaders are privately calculating tonight, and sources close to several Gulf capitals have made this clear. They are terrified that the United States will start this war, draw them into its orbit, and then walk away. Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and officials in Qatar are reportedly among the most anxious. If America exits the Strait of Hormuz conflict without a clear resolution, these countries will be left holding a bag full of consequences. Iranian pressure, energy uncertainty, and a public unable to understand why their governments aligned so closely with Washington. The Gulf dilemma is real, and it is sharp. If America leaves without securing the strait, Gulf countries may be forced to start trading oil in Chinese currency, not the dollar. They may reduce or stop investments in the United States. The petrodollar, the financial architecture that has underpinned American economic dominance for 50 years, could begin to crack. Not because of an ideological revolution, but because of a geopolitical miscalculation. Here's what you need to watch in the coming hours and days. Watch Bushehr. If there is any radiological incident from the nuclear facility that has been bombed twice, the entire character of this conflict changes immediately. Watch Trump. His domestic political window is narrowing. A unilateral ceasefire announcement, possibly before Easter, is not just possible, but likely. Watch for the language. Watch for the moment when victory is declared in Washington, even if the situation on the ground says something very different. Watch the Strait of Hormuz. If it remains inaccessible for non-Chinese shipping, energy markets will continue to move. Every government in Europe and Asia is watching this channel. Watch Germany. If Berlin follows through on shutting down American military bases, 50,000 troops, that is the formal end of the post-Cold War NATO structure as we have known it, a geopolitical earthquake. And watch Iran, not its state television. Watch whether ordinary Iranians are enduring strikes with national cohesion, or whether the economic and physical damage is beginning to fracture that cohesion. That internal dynamic will tell us more about this war's trajectory than any missile count or airstrike map. Tonight, the world is more dangerous than it was yesterday. The alliances that protected global stability for 80 years are under unprecedented strain. The energy systems that power the global economy are genuinely at risk. And the decisions being made in the next 5 to 10 days in Washington, Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Beijing will shape this planet's trajectory for decades. We will continue to bring you every development as it happens. If you found this briefing valuable, share it, subscribe, and stay informed. Because in a world moving this fast, understanding what is happening is no longer optional. It is essential. I'll see you in the next update. Stay safe.